Hello there, and welcome to my channel. In this particular video, I want to share something interesting with you, something I found in my Bible study about guilt and about the life of King David. Okay, and I really think it's going to be helpful to you because it was helpful to me. It really made a lot of sense when I studied it. And keep watching because I'm going to share a very helpful Bible study resource that I also used in my Bible study that helped me make this great discovery. So let us get into what I want to share with you in this video. So I have been in the book of Second Samuel for a while now, right? And in Second Samuel chapter 11, I read all about the sins of King David. So King David sinned by committing adultery with Bathsheba, right? And then he tried to trick her husband, Uriah, to come have sex with her so that the baby can be passed off as Uriah's, right? But Uriah declined because he needed to be at war. So David decided to plant him in the front lines of war so that Uriah would die. So he committed adultery, right? He committed murder. So we see all these things happening in chapter 11. And then moving on from chapter 11, we go into chapter 12. In chapter 12, we see Prophet Nathan come to David to confront him about what he had done. Now, David did not tell the prophet, but God told the prophet what David had done. So the prophet came into the king and confronted him, and then the king was so sorry. He apologized, he confessed, he was sober, and all of that. And Prophet Nathan said, God has forgiven you, right? But there would be some consequences. Before we get into all of that, do you know that I never really realized that between chapter 11 and chapter 12, a whole year had passed? How did I get to know this? As I was reading my study Bible, I there are so many helpful notes at the bottom of the study Bible. It's actually, let me show you the study Bible. It's the NLT Life Application Study Bible. The NLT Life Application Study Bible. So good. Okay. So I'm going to link it in this video. So if you go to the description, you can also go in and purchase it. It was my Christmas gift this past Christmas, and I've been loving it. Okay. So if you're really looking for a Bible that breaks down the word to you, uses simple language like it's NLT. So it's a very easy to understand version. And also it has life application. So the story of David, how does it apply to me? How can I apply the lessons in Samuel's life? And all of those things. It's all in there. So I've really found it helpful, and I know that you find it helpful as well. So as I was saying, I was in my study Bible, right? And then in the notes section, it said a year had passed between when the events of adultery and murder happened and when Nathan came to confront David. First of all, let me say that when I saw that it was a year in my Bible, I began to add two and two together, and I realized that, well, it's actually true, because one of the consequences that God gave David for the sin he committed was that the son that Bathsheba had for him was going to die. So, as at the time he committed adultery, up to the time that he was confronted and given that consequence, definitely it took at least 9 months because the son had to be born, right? The son of the adultery had to be born. I'm like, that is so true. Anyway, so I was wondering within this 1 year interval, what was going on in David's life, in his mind, in his work with God? I was wondering because I have been in a place before where I really did something, or I was involved in something that I really felt, was a sin and was displeasing to God. And I know how heavy I felt. I know how my relationship with God was. I know how my emotions were all over the place. I knew how I felt bad. And I just needed some sort of relief. I needed to go to God. I was like, God, please, this is really bad. It weighs on me, right? So I was wondering, like, how did David cope with that burden, with that pain for a whole year? And guess what? I was, looking at some Bible verses later, some days later, and then I came across Psalm 32. All right. In Psalm 32, I saw a vivid description of how David actually felt during that entire 1 year. I'm going to read it to you. All right. So, Psalm 32 from verse 3 to 4. I'm going to be reading in the Passion Translation. In the Passion Translation. So David was speaking here. He said, before I confessed my sins, I kept it all inside. My dishonesty devastated my inner life, causing my life to be filled with frustration, irrepressible anguish, and misery. The pain never let up, for your hand of conviction was heavy on my heart. My strength was sapped, my inner life dried up like a spiritual drought within my soul. Wow. Imagine how that felt heavy on him. The sadness, the grief, the dryness, the lack of energy and zeal for life, how that must have felt. And he went through that for an entire year, right? So then Nathan showed up, right? A year after, God sent Nathan to him. And after Nathan confronted him, he confessed, and all of that, and God forgave him. Let's see how he described that experience in Psalm 32 from verse 5 to 6 and also verse 10. So he said, then I finally admitted to you all my sins, refusing to hide them any longer. I said, my life-giving God, I will openly acknowledge my evil actions, and you forgave me. All at once, the guilt of my sin washed away, and all my pain disappeared. This is what I've learned through it all. All believers should confess their sins to God. Do it every time God has uncovered you in the time of exposing. For if you do this, when sudden storms of life overwhelm, you will be kept safe. So my conclusion is this. This is David still speaking. And so my conclusion is this. Many are the sorrows and frustrations of those who do not come clean with God. But when you trust in the Lord for forgiveness, his wraparound love will surround you. So this was David's experience shown in Psalm 32 of what really transpired between chapter 11 and chapter 12 of 2 Samuel. Okay. And this really taught me a lot of lessons. Picture this. Imagine if Nathan never showed up to confront David. Imagine if Nathan never showed up to confront David in chapter 12. What would have happened to David? Would he have remained in that state of misery and anguish and pain and darkness, emotional darkness, for the rest of his life? Maybe, maybe. And David was able to use that experience to speak to you and to every believer, that once you know you've gone wrong, just immediately, don't wait for God to call you out, right? Like God called David out after a whole year. Go to God, call yourself out. Let that burden of guilt be released immediately. Immediately you go to God, God forgives you, and that burden is washed away. That guilt is washed away. That pain is washed away. So why wait for a year? Why wait for 6 months? Why wait for a whole month before you rid yourself of that feeling of guilt and shame and pain, right? So don't wait like King David. Immediately you feel burdened by any wrongdoing you've done. Immediately you feel like the Spirit of God is convicting you that you've done something wrong. Immediately confess. Immediately admit it that I was actually wrong. Would you please forgive me, Lord? I was wrong. Please forgive me, Lord. Okay. So it doesn't take a year. It doesn't have to take 1 year for you to open up to God about your mistakes. Okay. Don't keep it in. Speak to a trusted believer. Speak to God and find immediate relief from all guilt. When I read this entire passage and the one in 2 Samuel and the one in Psalms, I was really blessed by the realization, that God is available, God is willing, God is loving, God is kind. God does not want you to be burdened by guilt, by sin, by shame, by the shame and pain of failure. You don't have to be. God is going to relieve you of it all, if only you would come to him and admit that you were wrong. I hope you have been blessed by this video, as it blessed me, because it really did bless me. If you have, I want to see in the comments, what is your biggest takeaway? Please share with me in the comments, what is your biggest takeaway from this particular video? And also, if you were blessed by this video, don't forget to like it. Don't forget to share with your friends, your family, your network. And also don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Until the next time I see you, take care of yourself and God bless you.